Everyone to Hands on Politics, where a couple of brothers from the Bronx get together on a weekly basis to talk about the issues of the day. We are hoping to make politics understandable for those who want to understand politics. Ken, this is episode 85. It's good to see you. I'm in such a good mood today. After last night's State of the Union, you could probably feel it because it was just such an uplifting night last night. But how are you this week, Ken? And what's happening down there in Georgia?
Well, I'm doing great. I do have to tell you, something interesting happened this morning. I don't know if you know this, but I've substitute taught at a Christian academy a couple times, and this morning I was offered a job to teach there next year. And I told Sherry last night, I said, yeah, things went well, and the principal came in and he was talking to me and he was asking what kind of degree I have, and we went back and forth, and I told her, I said, I really need to pray about this. We need to talk about this because this is something I would consider. And so it's, that's working with a couple, with some younger kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. It's been interesting. And so it's something that I'm considering. So I'm excited about that. But last night when I came home and watched the State of the Union address, I'm even more pumped now. What'd you think of it, Rich?
I loved it. But hey, Ken, before we get started, we got a lot to talk about here. But a couple of shout outs. I just want to give a shout out to our buddy from the Bronx, Charlie Arena. He's an avid fan of the show. And Ken, I don't know if you know that you know where he lived. He lived around the corner from Grandma's house on Corlear. He lived on Tibbet. And I was good friends with the Arena clan. And, we've reconnected on Facebook, and he's a retired New York State trooper. And shout out to him for what he did in his career, law enforcement. And we appreciate you, Charlie, for hanging out here at the show and being a big fan. And thanks for all you do, and we appreciate it. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Katie Ryan, who's also from the Bronx, who is really... She spoke out last night really strongly about the State of the Union, and we just want to encourage all of our folks from the Bronx and everywhere around the country to don't be afraid to stand up for what's right. And boy, the president was right on last night, Ken.
Oh, he absolutely was. Now let's see. Well, what do we have on our agenda, Rich? Let me put that up here. I think most of the show, is going to be spent talking about the State of the Union address. But I did want to maybe talk a little bit about the Olympics before we get going, and maybe a little bit about Mr. Gavin Newsom out there. So
very, very little about Gavin Newsom.
But the first thing, on our Facebook site, Hands on Politics 2.0, we get a lot of liberal feeds coming into us. And it was, in the middle of last week, I noticed this post from the Huffington Post, and it talks about if waving the American flag or chanting USA turns you off right now, you're not alone. And that is just so foreign to me because I think the Olympics is a time when Americans can come together. It's like 1980. I do remember that, and it was such a great feeling. I remember 9/11, after 9/11, how Americans just came together, and we really felt not only like a country, but like just a huge family. And so this is so foreign to me that you would have people, and Huffington Post is an extremely liberal publication, but there's people that follow this online magazine who don't like hearing USA, USA. They're turned off by patriotism, Rich. And it was just so disappointing for me to see. And I don't mention it to you, see what your thoughts are, and then maybe talk just a little bit about how you felt about the USA men's team winning the gold medal. And I don't want to leave out the women, because the women, if you watched any of that hockey game or those hockey games that they played, which I did.
Were fabulous. Absolutely.
It is a very high quality game that they play. And so I don't want to leave them out. They did great. The men did great. But I'm going to throw it back to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Ken, it lays the foundation for last night's State of the Union for sure. I watched the Olympics, and the big difference between patriots and the left and the Democrats is that we love our country and we love competition. We don't
Mhm.
care about your politics. I'm a big figure skating fan because I've been watching it for a long time, and just my wife loves it. So I've gotten to really enjoy it. And when you watch these people in their sports, whether it's snowboarding and doing flips or downhill
Right.
slalom, whatever it is, you have to appreciate the effort and the dedication that these people have. And the gold, the winner of the gold medal in the figure skating, she's from San Francisco. I'm sure she's liberal. I don't give a damn. She was absolutely stunning at
Mhm.
the Olympics. She was very creative, very artistic. And as an American, I'm really proud of what she did. I don't care how she votes. And to your point about the hockey team, it was like Budweiser or Coors or one of the big beer companies had a great commercial where they had a Philadelphia Eagles fan walk into some I think maybe New York Giants walking into a
Yes.
Philadelphia bar, and the Olympics are on, and it was a moment to come together. The whole commercial was based on exactly
Yep.
what you just said, Ken,
Yep.
which was American pride. When the US Olympic team is playing, they are representing America. It doesn't matter how they vote or any of that. It's not politics. It's about being proud of our country. Is being proud of our country now right wing or something, Ken? I don't understand it. This Huffington Post is just, it's really sad, and it really shows you the difference between patriots and the left. And they really have exposed themselves in both the Olympics and last night. But Ken, overall, the Olympics, loved it. It's the most medals we've ever had at the Winter Olympics because, the Norwegians, the Swedish, and they're very, very, and the Japanese in the figure skating have
Mhm.
been dominant over the years, but we're coming back, and it's so good to see those stories.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, a great spokesman for just what you're talking about being excited about being an American was Jack Hughes, that kid
Oh,
who
yeah.
had his teeth
Knocked
basically
out. Yeah.
knocked out. I think he scored the winning goal. His brother, Quinn Hughes, I believe. And then you had the Kachuk brothers. Like, I don't know their politics.
I don't
All I
care.
know is they were so excited to win for the United States, and they talked about, Team USA and how great the environment was being together with all those people. And that's, it would send chills down your spine just watching these guys, these young kids who
Yeah.
are so proud, and they're talking about, doing it for the people who came before them and setting being kind of role models for kids after them. It was just a feel good environment. And I think it was just a fantastic time. And just the whole thing just brought Americans together. The
Oh,
Americans who don't hate America. It brought all of us together. And I just thought it was fantastic, Rich.
yeah, 26 million people watched that on Sunday morning, which made it one of the largest live audience for broadcast. Imagine that, Ken. All these people got up early on a Sunday, and I know our cousin Brian, he had a big party down at his bar, and bars all across the country were celebrating and watching, and it was so great to see that many people wanting to kind of everything was lined up, right? 46 years on the day from the 1980
Yep.
Olympic win, and Canada and the US and all that goes with that. And it was the perfect storm for the for the Olympics. And I think if you had any kind of like self-loathing about this Olympics, you need to see somebody about that, because everybody should be proud of what our Olympians did, even the heartbreaking stories, but the determination and their dedication to their sport, it's just heartwarming.
Yeah. And I do have to say this, it, there seemed to be God seemed to be on our side. And I don't want to push that too far because, but the goalie, if
Oh,
you remember
oh, it
that
was
save
unbelievable.
where the puck was behind the goalie, he sticks his
He
his
swipes
stick
his
up
stick. Oh,
and it just, glances off the stick and goes out. I mean, it was amazing. And then,
absolutely.
and I saw a still picture where his eyes are just wide open. The goalie is like, he's looking down right at the puck and he's seeing that the puck hits his stick and it just goes wide by an inch. And so it just seemed like everybody who's on our side wanted for the United States. And it just doesn't get much better than that, Rich. So
Yeah, no,
fantastic.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
then, and we'll talk about it later, I guess, but the goalie for President Trump to give the goalie the
Medal of
presidential
Freedom.
Medal of Freedom. Yeah. So that was and you almost saw him starting to choke up there. So,
Absolutely, and
great.
Ken, one of the president's finer moments, it was when he joked about that, saying, "Did you practice that, or was that a little bit of luck?" That was,
Yeah.
I thought it was the president is always at his best when he's face to face with the American people, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to touch on Gavin for a
Yes, just
second?
briefly, Ken.
And anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Ken, think about anybody in the Republican Party with a black uh, facilitator, and they said that to him. Can you imagine the outrage, the broad brush that he just? I'm a 960 SAT guy. I'm stupid like you. I'm just like you. I'm stupid, and I can't read. He needs to explain why he all of a sudden, what is he proud of, what is he suggesting, what is his motivation here. Obviously, we know, because we follow politics, he's trying to undermine this elitist label he's been given, because he was brought up in a very wealthy family. He's had all the privileges of a very, very cushy childhood, and he's trying to act like he's part of the hood, like he came from the Bronx, and he had to live on the streets, and he had to battle his way. It's a whole crock. What he's doing is patronizing our
mhm.
fellow Americans, and especially the black community. What he's saying is, you guys, hey, I'm like you. It's like, guys I hang out with, they weren't 960 SAT guys. But to even assume that any group would be the 960 SAT guys is really racist, and he needs to be called out. I don't think Gavin has any shot. I don't think Kamala, who's pathetic, if you saw her, she was asked about whether she's running in 28. you know,
Oh,
she's like
yes.
a schoolgirl. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it yet. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I think those two, even though they're polling high in the primaries, I don't even
Mhm.
think they're going to make it there, Ken, because this stuff is really, really disturbing to most Americans. How racist Gavin is and how unserious Kamala is. She's just an unserious person all around.
Oh my gosh, there's no doubt about that. Who was it? Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. I thought he had a great quote. He said, basically he said, AOC is kind of like Vice President Kamala Harris, but with more bartending experience. I mean, they really
I
are
love
two. They're two people who are not serious. And
Yep.
I actually, this is more about Gavin, but I do have to say about AOC. Last week we played the clip when she was asked about the Taiwan
Policy.
China issue, and she was like, yeah, she didn't
Deer in
have
the
an answer.
headlights. Yep.
She did not prepare for it. But then she posted something, and there's some person or maybe a dog sleeping behind her because you can hear the snoring. Yeah, literally. And it looked like maybe it was late at night. Maybe
Yeah,
she
she
was
was
out
trying to be
drinking.
very quiet.
Yeah. But yeah, but her claim was that she was being thoughtful. She didn't want to just jump into an answer. No, the fact of the matter is you didn't have an answer, and so it showed your lack of experience or knowledge about international politics. But back to Gavin Newsom, I just think this was the ultimate example of pandering to Black people. It reminded me of Joe Biden. Joe Biden, he always had a story like, oh, I marched in the civil rights marches, which
Yeah,
he
he's friends
didn't.
with Corn Pop.
Yeah, yeah, corn pop, and all these
Whatever.
weird things. Like he'd be in a pool and they would touch his legs because of his hair floating around. It was all very, very weird. Joe Biden was a very strange person. But I
Absolutely.
think Gavin Newsom was like, okay, I'm going to be talking to an audience, and there's going to be quite a few Black people there. I'm going to be talking to Andre Pickens, I think he is. It's the mayor of Atlanta. How can I relate to
Yeah.
these Black people? And the thing that came to his mind, he had to say that I got bad grades and I can't read. That is exactly what Democrats think of Black people. They're dumb and they can't read.
It's sad.
And but the Democrats like to claim that Republicans are racist. No, Rich, like we've talked about before in the show, we've grown up with a lot of Black people, a lot of Hispanic people, people of all different races and colors, and we respect them. And so,
Absolutely.
and we're not ashamed to disagree with them, because if we disagree with them, it doesn't mean we disagree with their race or their culture or their ethnicity. It means we disagree with their policy idea. We
Absolutely.
respect them. We think of them like we think of ourselves. It's just
Yeah.
we're arguing politics or ideas. We're not. A criticism of one Black person is not a criticism of the Black race.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
we're not making assumptions, Ken, which is exactly what Gavin Newsom did. He's making an assumption. He's broad brushing a community, and it's really disturbing
Mhm.
that that's the way they think. It's like it's the political correctness where you can't say something about an ethnic group because if you disagree with them, they equate it with you're against whatever skin color they are, or if whatever they are, and it's so that's racist in itself.
Absolutely.
And so we treat everybody as individuals, not as groups. And if you have an opinion I disagree with, I'm disagreeing with you. I don't care what color you are. And when they disagree with me, I'm not assuming they hate all white people or old white men like me. I'm not making that assumption. I just let me figure out why they think like this, because what is it that makes them think like this, and do they not have enough information, or do they come from a different perspective, whatever the case might be. But it's really disturbing. Gavin Newsom is a slime ball. I don't know if he's going anywhere, Ken. I think you want to wash off when you see him speak. It's almost like and to your point about AOC, Newsom, they were at that. We talked about it last week. They were at the Munich security conference, and they just showed how unserious they are on the world stage. It was a really that was a strategic failure on their part to try to act like they were, big shots here in the United States, and they all flubbed. They all struck out at that Security Council meeting. And if anybody wants to check out what we talked about, that's on episode 84. Yeah, Ken, Newsom, I don't think he's going anywhere.
I hope not. I hope not. Okay, are we ready to talk a little bit about the State of the Union address, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. How do you want to lay this out? I'm just going to share that when they were talking about the they get little excerpts and things like that. When the commentators were saying, "Oh, this is going to be the longest State of the Union address," I have to be honest. I was sitting going, "Oh, I really am not looking forward to this." And then it happened, and I felt like I was watching this really cool show that you never knew what was happening next. And there was so much good vibe about, recognizing all of these great Americans, from the hockey team to victims of illegal criminal violence, to survivors of shootings, to survivors of, car accidents, to giving Medal of Honor, Purple Hearts. It was a celebration of what is really good in America. And I'll tell you, Ken, I was like, wow, that really, for the longest State of the Union, it wasn't a Bill Clinton long, which is basically, you remember him, he would just do a laundry list, and you said it best, of things they didn't do and things they weren't gonna do. So you knew it was just gonna be a long laundry list. But this, I'll tell you, whoever wrote this for him, and I'm sure he was involved in some of it, but they knew Donald Trump's strengths. And when Donald Trump is talking to American people, the American people, and especially the victims or the victors, he shows his human side. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And from a timing perspective, Ken, it went by in no time. What are your thoughts? Like, what was your expectation?
No, I think what you said is exactly how I felt beforehand. I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to be a long one. And Trump said it's going to be a long one because you don't get a lot of opportunities of free time on the networks. And so he's going to take advantage of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody needs to tell him less can be more. And I guess what I was concerned about, it's, when Trump goes into that, we're hot, and I've stopped all the wars. And like he goes into that loop of things that we've heard a million times. I'm like, oh, please don't do that. But I was so pleasantly surprised. But here's the thing. I pretty much have watched all the State of the Union's addresses over the last, 40, 50 years. I don't know. And the thing is, like, I think back to Bill Clinton. I think back to Barack Obama, Joe Biden, George Bush. And it was like, okay, we're going to listen to a laundry list of things that they claim to have done, but they probably didn't do many of them. And they're going to give a laundry list of things they say they're going to do, and yet no, they're not going to do the overwhelming majority of them. But now Donald Trump, one thing you can't disagree with, if he says he's going to do something, he is going to do everything in his power to get it done. And so he had a laundry list of things that he did, in fact, accomplish over the last year. And he had a list of things that he's planning on doing this year. And so, so you're listening, and to your point, like bringing up all these things like that are on the screen, the U.S. hockey team, giving away the purple medals and, whatever, all these different medals. It was a great show,
Yep.
but its basis was based on fact of what was
Absolutely.
being done and what is going to be done. And let me just say this last thing. I understand why Democrats don't want to watch this, don't want to participate, because they're listening to what's going to happen to them in the next year.
Yep.
Because they're not listening to say, oh, he's just saying he's going to do this. They're going to do, or he's going to do it, and they don't want to hear about it, Rich. But It was a great State of the Union address. I'll throw it back to you. But I do eventually want to talk a little bit about the people he had come in, and I want to get your opinion on what how you thought that fit into the overall show. And I say show not in a critical way, because it was a show of Americana. It was a celebration, is what
Absolutely.
that was, I think.
Yeah, and Ken, his style, and he's always criticized by the left for his style because he can be crass. But here's the thing. He speaks like the American people. He speaks what the American people are thinking, right? So he is not afraid to say these illegal criminals that are killing our American citizens need to be deported. And it was despicable that all these people over here on this side of the aisle allowed these people to come in. He's right in their face saying the truth. And as an American citizen, what you used to see at these things was just a swampy establishment where they're too polite to say the things that the American people feel. And that was always the frustration. But when Trump comes up there, it's like sending somebody up from the neighborhood to say, how do you feel about what's going on in the country? And this president tells it like it is, whether it's uncomfortable or not. The truth is uncomfortable, especially when you look at the Democratic policies that he pointed out and the people that he featured, especially the victims. That the American people feel that. The 80-20 issues that he brought up, and these people on the Democratic side of the aisle couldn't even appreciate, like the voter ID 80-20 issue, all of those types of things. He says it like the American people are feeling it. And that's what the Democrats don't understand, is that they just don't understand how patriotic Americans feel, because they hate this country so much. And when you look at Omar and Sharib or Talib, whatever, their anger on their face with an F ice pin on.
Oh gosh.
That and the anger in their face, and they're yelling at the president. And I think you might have a clip of it, Ken, where the Speaker of the House was about to say something, gavel him, whatever. But the president turned and was like, these people, I don't understand these people. And everybody got up and clapped. So he didn't have to do it. But man, some of the things that happened last night are going to be, if you're in a battleground race for Congress in the midterms, you are going to see this State of the Union being used to show, no matter if you have somebody Democrat that says they're moderate or conservative Democrat, you're old school Democrat, they are going to use this and say, it doesn't matter what they say. This is who they are. You're voting for this. Hatred of America. They are the party of hate America. Don't reward anybody, not even the person you might even like them. They all stick together in the hate America mindset. So don't support that. I think you're going to see that all over the midterms, Ken. And, just Donald Trump's tone was like taking somebody from the Bronx and saying, hey, go ahead, talk about what you think is going on in the country, right?
Absolutely. Now, I have two clips. One
Okay.
clip I think really addresses what you said when you said he says what Americans think.
Yep.
I'm going to show that first. That's a real quick clip here. I think this comes after him pointing out a woman in the balcony who had transgender surgery. But his point was that there were politicians who didn't allow this girl's parents to know what was going on. So it was really more about parental rights.
Yep.
So let's see what he had to say about this, Rich.
Look, nobody stands up. These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
That was the line of the night, Ken. I think I texted you as soon as he said that. I said that's the line of the night, and I saw Brit Hume on Brett Baer's panel, and he was first up, and he said the line of the night was these people are crazy, and that's what the American people look at some of this stuff and go, these people are nuts.
Yeah. Rich, here's the thing. That really encapsulates how I feel so many times. Like when you're arguing with a liberal, a leftist, a Democrat about open borders, I'm sorry, if that's what you're arguing, they want open borders, you want closed borders. It's like, I'm arguing with a crazy person. This person is crazy. If you're arguing with one of these people about whether or not men can have babies and whether women need to be checked for prostate cancer, where do you go with that? The only place you can go is where Donald Trump went, and that is they are crazy. But now let me get to the second clip, and that this is interesting because some people wonder, why didn't Mike Johnson kick out Rashida Tlaib or what's her name, Ilhan Omar, like he did to Al Green. Al Green was kicked out. That guy's a nut.
Right from the get-go. Yeah.
From the get-go. Well, and before I click on this, I do want to make this point. When Barack Obama was giving a State of the Union speech, let me see if I wrote the person's name now. Joe Wilson, who was a congressman from South Carolina, screamed out, "You lie." After I don't know what he was talking about.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was, oh my gosh, the liberals were up in arms. Where's the decorum?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's all awful. But to your point about Rashida Tlaib, she's wearing an F ice, and it didn't just have an F there on her lapel. You heard the other one, Ilhan Omar, arguing with Trump, just continue. Will you hear the mainstream media? Will you hear the Democrats criticize these two moral reprobates like they criticized Joe Wilson? Absolutely not.
Nope. They're heroes. Absolutely.
So the hypocrisy, I mean, it's obvious, it's clear, but it's still very discouraging. So let me play this clip, and you'll notice, again, Mike Johnson in the background, and he stands up and he grabs the microphone. He's about that far away from, telling these people to shut up or get out. But then he let it go because he could see where I think he felt that Trump was kind of feeding off of this.
Yep.
And so he decided not to do that. So let's take a look at this.
You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials.
Look in the background.
That's good stuff there, Rich.
Oh, absolutely. And he was feeding off of it. You could see the passion in his eyes, because he sees these victims. He gets the updates about what's going on out there. And he feels for those victims, as you can, as you saw when he was talking about some of them in the speech he highlights. And Johnson was right on the edge, but he beautifully finished it up with, you should be ashamed of yourself. And they all started clapping, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And Omar has got a really, she's got a set of what, because she's got a fake wine company. She went from 0 to 30 million in a year, and she's got a wine company set up at a warehouse where there's nothing going on, and it's basically a money laundering operation. And I loved when Trump was talking about the Somali pirates that are plundering our treasury with all of this fraud all around the country, and the cameras cut to her, and it was just beautiful, because when he was saying their culture is a culture of corruption, we all know that that's a true statement. And he was going at it, and he wasn't backing down. And I'm sure a lot of the establishment Republicans were kind of squirming, but that's what the truth is. And Donald Trump is not afraid to speak the truth. And I think right after that, he announced J.D. Vance as the czar of fraud or something, or he's going to have some kind of oversight to find this fraud, because we haven't forgotten about the $16 billion in Minnesota that has gone to the Somali community, that's been money laundered into the politicians there, including state politicians like Walz and Fry and all those people. So we haven't forgotten, and it was good to hear that, because, him saying, we're on this, we have resources on it, because sometimes things go out of the media spotlight and you wonder what's going on. Most politicians, if it's no longer being talked about, nothing's going on. But President Trump, he's a great delegator, and he is talking with Pam Bondi, saying, what are your folks doing on this? I want to know, because we're going after him. So I feel confident, if he brought it up in the State of the Union, that we're going to see some heads flying at some point. And I really, I just love that part of it, because we can't just import people from cultures like Somalia, who it's just corruption everywhere you turn.
Yeah, I mean, societies like Somalia, like Haiti, like Yemen, these are places, I've said it before, where our U.S. State Department in the Trump administration, Biden administration, Obama administration, for a long time says, sorry, you shouldn't go there on vacation because they're too dangerous. So why in the world would you pick up these societies and plop them down in the middle of America? If they're too dangerous to go to, they're definitely too dangerous to bring here. Right. But I do have to tell a joke about Ilhan Omar. I saw this on Facebook. I thought it was funny, because you're talking about the close-up of her when Trump was talking about the Somali fraud. And this person posted, I haven't seen Ilhan Omar this mad since her brother forgot their wedding anniversary. Well, I thought that was hilarious. And that's, of course, a joke about supposedly, and I've heard this come from multiple people, I don't know, but supposedly Ilhan Omar brought her brother here to the United States under the auspices of her, of them being married, of the, being spouses. But here's the other thing, about that. I think Trump made some off the cuff comments about, if we can eliminate all this fraud, we can balance the budget within a year. Now, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. But it's an off the cuff. Yeah, he's just making that comment.
Yeah.
But then you look at these liberal websites and fact checking. Oh, we cannot balance the budget. It's like, come on.
Yeah, come on now. He's just exaggerating the point to make a point, right? There's a lot of fraud out there.
Exactly. And that's what and I'm just like, whoever wrote this article, I would like, do you really think, are you writing this as if you really believe he's had, the Congressional Budget Office or the OMB calculating this, and this is a policy? No, it's an off the cuff remark, and we all understand what he's saying. You keep on mentioning about him being, talking like a regular person, and he's from Queens, we're from the Bronx, and we know how Donald Trump talks.
Yep.
Yeah, is he a BS or sometimes? Yes.
Yeah.
But is he a liar? No. But he does exaggerate. But you
To
just
get
have
his
to
point
understand.
across, he exaggerates to get his point across. He
Yeah.
makes comments to get people kind of uncomfortable and talking about what he's talking about. He just does it to, kind of, jab people in the side and get them, off their game. He gets in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. And so where do you want to go from here? I know we talked a little bit about the people that he invited and how he just beautifully weaved them into his speech. Do you want to talk about anyone in particular?
I think he weaved them, like you said, but there were two basic groups. There were the victims of Joe Biden's and the Democrats' open borders. You had the Charlotte woman who came here, who survived war in Ukraine, and her poor mom and dad were there. And, she was stabbed on the train just from behind for no reason at all. And it was somebody that was let out with sanctuary policies or no bail laws or whatever it was. You had Erica Kirk, who everybody knows, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated for what he believed. They focused on that. The young kid who was in a car with an illegal alien driving a truck.
Yeah.
And was critically injured and was making a recovery. The National Guard person in DC that was murdered by the Afghan who was brought here, illegal Afghan, brought under the I guess you can't call him illegal, but brought here under a non-vetted program, just allowing people to come in from a country that hates us. He killed the woman, and then the guy that got shot in the head they couldn't believe that. They were like telling the mother that he's not gonna make it. And who was there by her side? The son, who had made a miraculous recovery. And Donald Trump was talking about the positivity and the faith of that woman, that mom that was, had her son come back to them. So there was the group of kind of victims of Democrat policies or open borders, but not all at once. They were weaved in. And then you had the military. And then you had the hockey team. And you had the positive stuff, the drug prices coming down for the woman who was, trying to get pregnant. And then the Purple Heart, the Medal of Honor, those were just beautiful, positive celebrations of our wonderful military people that keep us safe and do the hard work of keeping freedom alive in the world. And so he weaved those. There were two basic groups that he used. So you didn't know what was coming next, but he tied each one into either a policy of positivity that he had done or the negativity of the policies that the Democrats support. So it was beautifully aligned. One of my favorites was obviously the 100-year-old Korean War vet.
Oh, yeah.
That got the Purple Heart or the Medal of Honor. He got a long standing ovation. That was one of my favorites. A man that's been on this earth for 100 years has seen a lot. patriot, not talking about his story much, but it just, people knew the story and just kept pushing and pushing. And it culminated in such a beautiful moment at the State of the Union. So I think they all were very touching and they all showed. I don't think the only ones the Democrats got up for, I don't even know if they got up for any of them, but I think they got up for the hockey team, and they may have got up for the veterans, but I'm not sure about that. Not all of them, but they didn't get up for the victims, which was very, very disturbing.
Yeah. And even when they got up, they didn't want to get up. It's
No.
like
They
they
knew.
didn't even believe in it, but they're like, okay, that would be really political suicide if I don't stand up for a 100-year-old guy. But just, a couple points. One, on that young girl who was almost killed by that illegal alien who was driving a tractor trailer.
Yep.
I was looking that up, and most of my research, I'm looking on liberal sites. And I found out this girl on one of the sites, I looked it up, and she got injured in a, large car pileup. I'm like, really? It was just a pileup of cars.
Yeah.
They leave out the fact that it was a large
Illegal. Yeah.
accident that was caused by an illegal alien. And I
Right.
thought Trump did a great job talking about that, because this is one of those 80-20 issues. Why
Absolutely.
in the world would you give a CDL license, the ability to drive those big rigs, to people who cannot speak, write, or read English?
Yep.
It is insane. These things, weigh tons. They're driving down the highway. They don't know if a sign comes up, slow down ahead. They can't read it. But yet states like California, Washington, Oregon, Illinois, these crazy people give these CDL licenses in Spanish and in different languages so that they can let these people drive. It is just so insane. The other point I'll make is that just drives me crazy when I listen to liberals is they'll be mentioned about girl getting stabbed, and I don't know if that was by an illegal alien. It might have
No,
just been
it was
more.
by somebody that had a rap sheet a mile long, so it was
Yeah.
no bail policies.
Yeah, but they defend illegal aliens who commit crimes by saying, well, illegal aliens commit fewer crimes as a percentage of their population than U.S. citizens. Now, number one, I think that's a load of crap.
Is a lie.
But if you accept we have a certain amount of violent crime in the United States, and you have this group of illegal aliens who, whatever the percentage is, doesn't matter, if they're going to commit 100,000 cases of violent crime, why would you want to import these people? It has nothing to do with the percentage. Having 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million people or cases of violent crime taking place, you don't want that here. And so it just drives me crazy when I hear this convoluted logic on the part of these lunatics who are, just as Donald Trump said, they're crazy. It just drives me crazy, Rich. And
yeah, no, and the most telling part of last night was when the president said, stand up if you believe that our responsibility is to the American people and not protecting protecting Americans over illegal immigrants. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if you have the exact words, but all the Republicans got up and the Democrats stayed seated. And that was, in my mind, the biggest political mistake they made all night, because they were baited and they didn't realize. I think maybe Fetterman might have got up, but I don't know. Fetterman was he's like the only sane Democrat anymore. But
and what was he wearing? Did you notice what he was wearing?
He was wearing a suit. Yeah.
A suit and tie.
Yeah, no, he was, I think he's getting ready to switch parties or something, but I don't think he'll ever switch, but he's trying to bring the Democrats back to some common sense. But that was a really telling moment of the speech. And they you knew that was a Stephen Miller, very much a Stephen Miller idea in my mind, that you gotta make them, you gotta put them on notice. It's like bringing up a vote so that people can see on the record where people stand. So that was the on the record moment for Democrats and how they feel about illegal immigration. And to your point, Ken, 80-20 issue. And they keep kind of citing polls about how people are upset about the way they're doing XYZ. It's a bunch of garbage because people want these illegals out of this country. They're not falling for the crap. All these little polls that ask, is ICE being too too rough on the U.S. citizens? Oh, yes, there be. It's like, who are you polling? Where are you polling? That's a bunch of garbage. It's still an 80-20 issue, and I think that was the moment that you're going to see in every midterm election this November. And it was brilliant, whoever put it into political genius to put that into the speech.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I did like the fact that they didn't stand up, because Democrats in the past have done a much better job of hiding who they are.
Yeah.
But the Democrats have been taken over by the extreme left wing of their party. Barack Obama was almost as extreme, maybe as extreme as Ilhan Omar and these people, but he was much better at hiding it.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton was almost as extreme, but he did a good job hiding it. The Democratic Party is not, and we've said it before, they are not the Democratic Party of your grandparents, of your parents, even 30, 40 years ago. They, as Trump said, are crazy. They have lost, they are no longer tethered to sanity.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that they're now being controlled by AOC, Ilhan Omar, and people like that, because we get to see what they really believe. Because that was always the most frustrating thing about watching Obama and Clinton, is they're lying about what they're doing.
Exactly.
Like you always knew they were lying, but they were good liars. And so you're thinking to yourself, oh, geez, there's going to be a lot of moderate people who don't follow politics that are going to believe them.
Yep.
But what happened last night, the people in the middle, they see that and they're like, wow, the Democratic Party is crazy, and I don't want to be associated with that. So I like that aspect of their honesty now, Rich.
Yeah, and what has to happen next is you got to remember they're crazy, but you also have to remember you have to vote. And that's always the big thing. It's not whether you feel something should go that way, you got to make it go that way. And that means showing up no matter if you're in a really blue district. You never give up. You always show your displeasure with whoever's in your district. Whether you know they're going to win, you just never know. And if voter ID comes in, Ken, you really don't know, because there's been so much corruption in voting. And, that the Democrats wouldn't be fighting so hard against all of this effort to get illegal immigrants out if they weren't getting into elections and making the difference in a lot of elections. So, there's no proof of any fraud or this or that. And it's like they always point to Georgia, your state, Ken, and they talk about how there have been lawsuits. Your state was run by Republicans, and they were hiding their behinds. And there is so much corruption there. And those there's nothing to see here. are establishment Republicans trying to cover their behind because they knew there were 350,000 ballots, mail-in ballots, that aren't even tied to anything. And, oh, there's no fraud. There's a vote here, a vote there. We know better. Just like we knew they are, left-leaning and they hate this country and they're going to raise your taxes. We know they're lying. And this is that same issue that Dow protests too hard, because if it's not a problem, why is voter ID a problem? Right? Simple. Why would it matter? And to say that blacks and women can't get an ID? Come on, guys. Again, racism, sexism coming from the Democrat Party. That's what they think of you. Do not let them benefit from any of this with your vote. You need to punish them and hold them accountable, and keep the Congress and give the majority a veto-proof majority, and let's get some good things done for the country in the last 2 years of the Trump presidency.
Yeah. There's so many things that Trump said that were so great last night, but the voter ID part was another great thing. And I've said it before, but I worked for an organization called Americans for Citizen Voting. And what we worked on is we went around to all these different state legislatures, talked to governors, talked to representatives, and we wanted the states to update their constitution to say only U.S. citizens could vote. And here in Georgia, we had meetings with Brad Raffensperger, who was our Secretary of State during the 2020 election. And after the 2020 election. So I literally went out to dinner with Brad Raffensperger and his sidekick, Gabe Sterling, who went on CNN after the election to trash Donald Trump and Republicans. Raffensperger and Sterling are total TDS people. And anyway, so they sat across me, and I'm a member of this organization. So I wasn't going to press them too hard on what they had to say about the election, but they were vile anti-Trump people. And it was just so clear. And I'd ask, well, did you think that, with all these absentee votes, do you think that maybe allowed for some fraud to take place? No, blah, blah, blah. So it was awful. But I wondered why they were so adamant about it was a perfect election and there was no fraud at all. Well, now we're coming up. I think it's in November. We're going to have a vote for our governor. Brad Raffensperger is running for governor. And the number one guy, or somewhere at the top, was Burt Jones, or at the very least, he has been endorsed by Donald Trump. Rich, when I tell you, every day I see multiple campaign ads against Burt Jones, and it's coming from dark money. You don't know who's supporting it. This is my prediction. I don't know if it'll ever be proven, but I'm going to make this prediction, or I'm going to make this claim, is that Brad Raffensperger was promised a whole lot of money back in 2020 for when he was going to be running for governor. And I believe that Brad Raffensperger covered up all this garbage that took place in 2020 in exchange for all this money that is now going to take out Burt Jones so that Brad Raffensperger can become the next governor of Georgia. Last point, Garland Favorito, who we've had on the show, he pointed out he had asked for Freedom of Information Act, or basically Freedom of Information Act, where he said to Fulton County, I want to see the ballots that you have in your warehouses so that we can verify that these are not duplicates, that these are not reams and reams of duplicate ballots, which, by the way, Susie Voiles, I've been in meetings where she's like, I had reams of paper that were duplicates, and they were running them through the through the vote counter, through the machines. But when Garland Favorito made these claims or made these requests, they were told by Fulton County that we don't have them. Well, when the FBI went into the warehouses, they pulled the very ballots that Garland Favorito was requesting. So there's a whole lot of dirt going on, and I'm really excited to see what ends up coming out of this DOJ, FBI investigation into what happened in Fulton County, Georgia. But I'm telling you, there's a whole lot of dirt going on, and I'm sorry to go off on that tangent.
No, it's good stuff.
It's so fraudulent, Rich.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll keep people updated on that. All right, Ken, what do you? We had a whole bunch of issues, but what do you want to kind of? I'm just going to say something quickly. Yeah, we can talk about that. The only place that I think if I were to give the president feedback, I would give him, you did a fabulous job. Here's where I don't think you do yourself justice. When he talked about the tariff ruling, he should have said something simply. I disagree with the ruling that came down with the Supreme Court, but I respect their decisions based on their constitutional experience as lawyers. But the good news is that they have already ruled on other uses of the tariffs that I can now use. Thank you for your, service and what you do. I know it's a difficult job. I disagree, but, I'm not a lawyer, and kind of leave it there. And when they were showing the Supreme Court justices, mostly Roberts and Comey Barry, when he was criticizing them, and he didn't do it hard, but it was like, you know what? They're on the American people's side in most cases. I think we've got a pretty decent court.
Yep.
So why piss them off? There's no, or say something like, I agree with what, Brett Kavanaugh and Justice Thomas said more, but I understand that there's, the legal the legal aspects are very complicated. So I get there can be differences at times. You gotta treat those types of issues with a little more nuance. And that's my only criticism of the night, was that moment, because I felt uncomfortable for the justices there, because there are technicalities. We all get frustrated with the law, but that's the beauty of our system, is that we have the opportunity. We kind of look at things and then we make adjustments, and that we bring different cases that make more sense for the issue, on and on. But we respect the institution. You don't want to give Democrats any fodder, because they hate the Supreme Court right now, and they would try to change and add liberals to it if they get into power. So, you got to keep them on your side. But, the tariff ruling, Ken, I think it is more complicated, and I don't know why they chose the Emergency Powers Act over the ones that have already been established. And you may have done more research on this, but if we already have Supreme Court precedent, why argue in a place where it's unclear? And maybe that was the point, was to try to make it more clear. I don't know. But I think because it's not going to impact overall tariffs, I don't think he needed to go there on that. And, so I'll throw it back to you, Ken. What are your thoughts on the ruling?
Well, first on the State of the Union, with the Supreme Court being right in front of them. Yeah, there is no benefit to criticizing them.
No.
And I'd remind Donald Trump that you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And Donald Trump, this is when I have my biggest problem with Trump. And that is, I'm okay with him criticizing enemies. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they're enemies. They hate America.
Yeah.
that's not the case with Roberts and Coney Barrett, and you need them in the future. And I'm not saying that if he sweet talks them, he's going to get better
Oh, no, no.
rulings. Yeah, no, he's not. That's not going to happen. But it doesn't do any. There's no benefit to doing it. So
Absolutely.
just don't do it. When you have somebody, the people who are on your side, take good care of them. The people who are against you, okay, you can be harsh,
Exactly,
you can be
beat 'em
tough
up.
on them,
Yep,
but those people in the middle, you need to bring them over to your side. Now,
absolutely.
so just that's my concern with just how he is when it comes to people who are kind of in the middle. Don't
Yep,
piss them off. There's no reason for that. But when it comes to the tariffs, the research that I've done, and it's not real clear. However, I would say the other options that he had for the tariffs seem to require a comment period, at least in two of the three other options he has. So it's not like it's not as simple based on what I've seen. Trump can't just say, "Oh, we're going to give you a 10% tariff." It's like, okay, we need to give them a 10% tariff because they're dumping product in the United States.
right.
Okay, the Commerce Department needs to put that in. Then they have to have hearings, and then we have to vote on it.
Yeah.
It's something like that where it's not as quick. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but that's what I got from this, from what I've read, and I think that's probably the case. But the fact of the matter is, he can basically do what he was doing, maybe a little bit more cumbersome, but he's still going to be able to have tariffs. So he just shouldn't burn so many bridges sometimes,
Yeah,
because I think in the end we're going to be very close to where we were in the past, before the Supreme Court ruling. Rich.
yeah. No, and yeah, s that's the point, and, the other thing the Supreme Court should really keep in mind is that if it's unclear, completely unclear, then we have to look at the circumstance and what it means for the country. So, for example, he's utilizing them to incentivize our national security by bringing production home. It's a national security issue. It's also a issue that the rest of the world understands that when our president speaks, he has the leverage and the power to do those kind of um, processes that he wasn't doing it to specifically raise revenue. His real goal was to get better deals and to get manufacturing back here in the United States. It wasn't, to bring more money into Congress and to replace the income tax, although that might be a residual of the tariffs because the money's coming in. And when have the Democrats ever been against getting more money into the Treasury? It's like,
Exactly.
that's that's another thing, right? It's kind of gives them more money to spend. But when you're looking at it from outside in, this disconnect and undermining the president's ability to operate on the global stage is very concerning to me. And I think the Supreme Court could have been more nuanced and said that, okay, where he's using it as an incentive and national security, that is okay. If he's using it as a revenue generator, that undermines the Congress's responsibility to raise money. So they should have been more nuanced there and said, yes, we agree the president can do this for national security and for incentivizing things that help our national security, but he cannot do it just to raise money. So that money has to go into a special pot that only the Congress can decide where that money goes. That to me would have made a lot more sense, but we know there's so many complications in the law, and so
Well, and let me make this point also. Um, I have to believe that some of the Supreme Court justices, and I think about Roberts in particular, they have to be somewhat sensitive to being called lapdogs of Trump,
Yeah.
because they are criticized by the left unfairly,
Yeah.
but they're criticized by the left for allowing Trump to become a dictator. Total BS and all that. But I have to believe they're very sensitive to that and they don't like it. And so in this particular case, the IEEPA gives the administration the ability to regulate commerce to a certain extent. It does not specifically say tariffs, but it does say regulate. And to most people, and historically, that's been thought to include tariffs.
Right.
But I think maybe the Supreme Court said, well, you know what? This gives us the ability to push back on him. He does have these other options to raise tariff revenues. It allows him to do exactly what he wants to do, but we can kind of appear to take a stand against him, and we can take it by saying the tariff isn't in IEPA. So maybe it was a way for them to somewhat save face while still allowing Trump to do what he wants to do, what he can legally do, albeit it's a little bit more cumbersome. And I think that's what Clarence Thomas was basically saying is like, and I forget the exact term, but it's like, he's allowed to, this bill says he can regulate, and regulate includes tariffs.
Tariffs, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe that's my way of maybe justifying what they're doing a little bit.
Roberts is a political animal, and he's trying to look out for the longevity of the Supreme Court. And so maybe, but it shouldn't be the case. But
No.
I agree that we're human beings, right? So that's, those are our faults and our strengths. So what's, I just want a quick thing about Iran. I keep predicting something's going to happen, but they just moved B-2 bombers or the stealth. What's the stealth? The F-22. They have moved them to Israel when they're normally in England. So there's a whole bunch of them there. There's an armada there that is as big as we've ever put in the Middle East. We've been talking with Israel. We're talking to Iran, and the Ayatollah is not backing down. So, I keep saying it, but the Olympics were going on. Now the Olympics are over. The State of the Union's over. And if I don't know if I read into this at the State of the Union, but when he finished, the president came around. I don't know if you noticed this, and he made a very deliberate effort to shake the Joint Chiefs of Staff's hands as they went out, and he kind of he made a gesture towards them, and it was almost like they had something more important to do, and that they were on a little mission there to get the hell out and get back to work because they were on the brink of something big. And that's just me reading. But Trump had a look on his face of like, you know what? Good luck out there. It was almost like, I'm with you. God bless you. And, there was just something about it. And maybe I'm just reading into it, but he beelined right for them, shook their hands on the way out, and they went right out the door. And does it have anything to do with Iran? I don't know. Ken, I think they need to destroy, if the Ayatollah doesn't agree, which he's not going to agree, we all know that. They need to get rid of they got to go after the ballistic missile factories, all of their communication abilities, whether, for what's left of their air defenses. All military installations need to be destroyed, and the Ayatollah needs to be removed, whether that's dead or alive, whatever. And we need to make sure that the Iranian people are not harmed as much as possible. But we know the Iranians are really, like all terrorists, they're really good at kind of hunkering in with the masses. So if we are going after the Ayatollah, let's hope the special forces of Israel, the Mossad, know where he is, and they can get him without a lot of death and dying of the good Iranian people that just want their freedom. And we see some action there, and we see some hope for the future for the Iranian people. And God bless our military and anybody that is expected to go into this. We can only pray for them that everything goes according to plan and that everybody comes out healthy and successful.
Yeah. I know we have talked about this last few weeks, but we're moving a lot of military equipment over there, and that's extremely expensive to do, and we're not doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would assume if the Ayatollah stepped down, or at least that regime stepped down, we wouldn't do anything. There wouldn't be any military operation, but I don't see him stepping down. These people, they have a warped sense of their relationship with God, and I think they're going to go down, fighting. So we'll see what happens. I just hope everything goes well. I hope that the Iranians get the freedom that they deserve, and that in a week or two we're talking about a nice, clean operation. But I'll tell you what, if I'm an Ayatollah, I know what happened to Maduro. Our special forces went in there and just took him out of his wherever he was staying, and so they have to be shaking in their boots. And so they're not. I would assume they're not going to be as easy to get to as Maduro was, because they're hiding out somewhere. But we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see
I hope the overwhelming force is to hit every military installation at the same time so that there's no opportunity for them to retaliate. So the reason I'm hoping we have so much firepower there is that when they give the signal that every installation, and they know where every installation is, that at the same time they're just looking, going, uh-oh, here come the the Tomahawks and the F-15s and the F-22s and every installation is hit at the same time, and they're like, overwhelmed. That's what we have to hope. And Cam, one last thing, the whole Mexican cartels were in the news this week, and I've been to Puerto Vallarta. Never would go back there again. Puerto Vallarta it was dumpy 30 years ago. But Mexico is a huge destination for the American tourists, and the U.S. helped Mexico get one of the biggest cartel leaders. This was, again, a Trump promise to go after these evil cartel people. And again, this supports why the open border was so important to shut down, because there are some of these cartel members that are in this country, Tren de Agua and all these other scum of the earth. And this shows you how they reacted and responded, burning down stuff, going after Americans and tourists and airports. And I think a Delta flight came back from Mexico, and they found bullet holes in the fuselage. That I saw that story. Maybe not. Wouldn't surprise me. But the cartels were designated as terrorist organizations to give our military operational authority to go after them. I think this is a good thing, but you don't want to be traveling to places like Mexico in the near future, because I think it's only going to get more pronounced as they their sex trafficking, drug trafficking is all being shut down, and that's what they make their money on. So they're going to get, like the Democrats, backed into a corner, and they just start lashing out. So I love that Trump went after them and helped the Mexican government with this, but I don't think we've seen the end of it.
No, yeah, I don't think this is a one operation situation here. It's gonna be prolonged, but I think Trump, the future is not bright for Mexican cartels. You just think about all the boats that are leaving Mexico and heading north. Not good to be a fisherman, not good to be a drug trafficker. It's not good to be working in one of those warehouses where they make the drugs. So, yeah, I just think that Trump is, he's like, I have 4 years. I'm already 1 year into it. I'm going to clean up everything I possibly can. All those things that have been happening that we don't like, whether it be drugs coming into the country or whatnot, we're going to stop it as quickly as possible during my term. And I think that's what he's doing right now. And I think, Rich, I might have lost you, and that's okay. I'm not sure if I can get him back. I'm going to assume that I'm not going to get him back. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to thank everybody for joining us for this edition of Hands on Politics. If you want to follow us on Facebook, you can go to Hands on Politics. If you want to follow us on X, you can also go to Hands on Politics. YouTube, you can go to @Hands on Politics with Rich and Ken, or Rich Ken 146. And if you want to email us, you can go to hop2025@aol.com. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We post this to our Facebook site. We also post it to our X site and also to our YouTube site. So we want to thank you for joining us. And on behalf of Rich, we both say thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you next week for the next edition of Hands on Politics. Thanks for joining us.